Hi, so today I would like to talk about the books I want to read in the month of August. So this TBR kind of got out of hand. So the highest number of books I've ever been able to read in 1 month is 8. And there are 9 books on this TBR, one of which is over 800 pages. So I don't think I'm necessarily going to finish all of these, but I'm really going to try. Especially since I don't really have a lot of plans in August. I was supposed to work, but my work just said oh, we actually only need you in the last week of August, so I basically don't have a lot of plans, which is nice for my reading. So it all started with 2 books that I was like, I really want to read these in August, so let's make a TBR. And basically the first one of these is a book I've been meaning to read since 2014, but only bought 1.5 years ago, but then couldn't really get into. So I tried to read it a few times for Booktubeathon last year, for example, but also just immediately after I got it almost. Never really got into it. I think it's maybe just a coincidence, and I really need to give it another chance because I think I'll absolutely adore it. The only problem is that I know how it ends because some children in a train had to read this for school and they discussed the ending very loudly. So that's very sad. But apart from it, I still want to read it. It's Lord of the Flies by William Golding. So a group of kids, their plane crashes and they're the only survivors. They crash on this island and they have to just survive. Every time I've only gotten 30 pages into this, and basically the kids have met each other and there's kind of a weird hierarchy comes into play. So I would say I'm really curious where this ends up, where this leads up to, but I kind of know. But I'm curious to see probably some things I don't know about. So yeah, just really want to read this because it's been one of those books that ever since I got back into reading, I've really been wanting to get to. And it's one of the only ones that, from the ones that I really want to read, those dystopians, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World, Handmaid's Tale, those classics. This is one of the only ones that I haven't really gotten to yet. So yeah, this one's really high priority, really hoping to read this. In a similar vein, I really want to read American Psycho by Bret, Easton, Ellis. The difference is that I haven't really meant to start this yet, tried to start this yet, but I'm just a bit intimidated by the tiny font and horrifying plot. But yeah, I really enjoyed Less Than Zero, and I picked that up because it was on sale and American Psycho wasn't. Otherwise, I probably would have read this already. So it's about this kind of very America in its most consumerist, capitalist way, where people can just do their day jobs and be really cool, but this man's actually a psychopath and a mass murderer at night. So yeah, I think I want to write my thesis about themes of consumerism and technology, and I think this might I just heard a child scream. I'm absolutely horrified. I live in student housing. To get back to this, I've just been meaning to read this for a while, and I'm really hoping to finally get to this because I know I'm going to adore this. I know I'm absolutely going to love it. And similarly, I've owned this for 1.5 years, and I've meant to read it for 4. So there are 2 more which I immediately added to this TBR. Because I thought I bought them fairly recently and I really want to get to them rather than that they just remain on my shelves, because one of them is kind of intimidating, but I really want to get to it, and I bought it because usually I only buy 1 book by an author, especially when I haven't read that author yet, so I won't buy another book by that author until I've read the first one, usually. But this one is one of many exceptions, because I was just too intimidated by Gravity's Rainbow. So I decided to pick up Bleeding Edge by Pynchon, which basically deals with themes of paranoia, post 9/11 New York, those kinds of things. I've just been really been wanting to read some Pynchon, and I decided that this one appealed to me most apart from Gravity's Rainbow, which I'm just too scared to read because it's supposed to be really difficult, a lot more difficult than this one, and it's over 900 pages. So I've just decided to first read this one and maybe not be as intimidated afterwards to finally get to Gravity's Rainbow as well. The other one is also one I've been wanting to read for like 4 or 5 years, and it's The Lottery and All the Stories by Shirley Jackson. So I think everyone kind of like, I'm not that familiar with the plot. I think I know what's going on, at least in The Lottery, because Penguin's Instagram spoiled it for me, ironically. But I still like, it's just all very like intriguing, dark, horror, those kind of things. And I love that. I love her other works, particularly Haunting of Hill House. I've been wanting to read this for a very long time, especially The Lottery. It's been on my TBR ever since I first heard about it, which was in like 2014 or something. So it's about time I read this, and I also adore this cover. I've just been wanting to read more Shirley Jackson. This was the one at hand. So yeah, those are basically the 4 books I really want to get to this month. However, there were 2 others which I just like kind of rolled over from the reading rush because I didn't manage to finish them. And the first one is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. I'm almost through with this, so I've already discussed this quite often, so I won't like be going into this too much. This is about a Martian invasion. It's quite good, but it's also really slow and I can't really get into it. So I think this is probably just going to be a 3-star because I appreciate it, but I'm just not clicking with it, which is really annoying because I just want to read, but every time I just like scan over the words and then have to go back because I didn't really actually take in what was going on. So I'm hoping to like finish this soon enough and enjoy the rest of it because I know it's really good, and there have been some chapters that I really enjoyed and got into. So yeah, this is a bit of a weird one, but I'm just hoping to get through this soon. And the other one is Homesick for Another World by Moshfegh. I read like 2 stories of this in the reading rush, and I haven't really picked it up ever since, because it's a bit like that whole theme of, oh, life is meaningless, so these stories are meaningless, and I'm just not completely here for it yet, but maybe I will. I mean, the stories were quite good, but they just didn't really seem to have a point, which is not always something I'm in the mood for. But I do want to read more of this. And the writing is very pleasant and very interesting as well, because it's like all the words are just very unique in a sense. Like she chooses words that you wouldn't maybe expect to find in the context they are used, even though they're like correct and stuff. But it's interesting, and I'm curious to read more of it. So this is like a 6-book TBR, and I kind of thought like maybe I can do something with a random number generator or something. That would be fun, but maybe I just want to keep my TBR open. But then I really can't remember her name, but an amazing booktuber who talks about like a lot of sci-fi and horror, and she runs so I'll link her channel down below. She runs the Stephen King readathon every August, and I decided to participate. The main point is just like read some Stephen King. She's going to reread all the Dark Tower books. I think I'm finally going to get to 11/22/63, which is the big one. This is about the assassination of Kennedy, about time travel, those kinds of things. And I mean, the only other Stephen King I have unread on my shelves is The Gunslinger, but his writing in it is just not very good. While this is like praised to be one of his best works, and I just really miss Stephen King's writing, and I just haven't got anything else in hand, and I've just been craving to read some Stephen King, so I decided why not participate, get this out of the way as well, because I've owned this the longest of all my Stephen King books, but I've never actually picked it up, except for once, but I only read like 20 pages, even though it was good, but yeah, I think that was even 4 years ago that I last picked this up, so it's about time I gave it another shot. And if I can participate in a readathon as well, that's great, of course. At that point, I was kind of like, okay, this TBR is fine as it is. No need to add anything more. This is how it's going to be. Hopefully I can maybe finish this in time to pick up something else, but I'm not counting on it. And then I visited my friend who was like, okay, you really need to read this book. Here, let me lend it to you. And I finally caved. Like, we've been discussing it a lot, but I finally decided, like, yeah, I need to read it. Maybe I should just read it now. And it's this Disaster Artist by Sestero and Bissell. There's a film. It's called The Room. And such a horrible film have been made, especially because the budget was like extremely high. And what's Tommy Wiseau's deal? Because he's made this, he's created this film, and he has all this money. Where does he come from? What's going on with Tommy Wiseau? And this book basically talks about the making of The Room. I've already watched the film of this, which was kind of shit, but everyone said that it was so much worse than the book, and I'm just excited to finally... so the film The Disaster Artist, not the film The Room, of course. That's just very unique. That's just like, The Room is just very unique, and if you aren't familiar with it, even if you hate films, because I usually hate films, but The Room is just like something else. But I'm going to read this as well, preferably like as soon as possible. My friend said it's a really quick read, so hopefully I can read it quickly. And the last one is basically, okay, so that's 8 books. That's my max of books I can read in a month, usually. But yeah, then my boyfriend just said like, oh, let's go to the bookshop. And he hates reading, so I was a bit confused. And he was like, oh yeah, I need to buy some like Magic the Gathering cards. I was like, I'll come along. And I actually intended, because like it was just been released, so I intended to buy the paperback of My Sister the Serial Killer. Because I always like in my head think of it like in line with Lullaby, this one, by Leila Samani, but yeah, and I have that one in paperback, so I wanted My Sister the Serial Killer in paperback as well, and they had it. But then my eye just fell on this one. And this is a Czech novel. It's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. And this is about philosophy. And it's kind of like a love story, I think, but it's more about philosophy. And a year ago, I almost bought this. And ever since, I've kind of regretted not buying it. Like, some of my favorite booktubers talked about it. Some of my favorite, like, some people in real life kept mentioning it. It went up for a book club at school, even though I didn't, like, manage to participate. And then, like, a friend of mine just said, like, out of nowhere, like, we don't talk about books that often. And she just said, like, oh, have you heard of this book? You need to read it. And I was just like, I know. And I haven't read it. And I need to. And everyone keeps telling me. So I bought it, and I immediately put it on my TBR. Because I really want to get to this. And I also just want to read books I buy quickly after buying them. So, yeah, this one is the last one. And then I have a TBR with 9 books. So wish me luck. If you've read any of these, please tell me. Yeah. And tell me what you're going to be reading in August. Do you have many rollovers from the Reading Rush? And are you participating in the Stephen King readathon? Because that would be fun. Bye. See you in the next video.